JKB back with another episode, and today on the show I'm reviewing Paper Mario the Origami King, thanks to Nintendo for the review copy. Paper Mario the Origami King is the sixth game in the Paper Mario series, and this time around you must help Mario stop the Mushroom Kingdom from being transformed into origami. Paper Mario seems to be the one Mario game that people look at and see something they expect more out of. It's always been a series that I've looked at and kind of expected more out of as well, but at its core, it's a story-driven experience. The main reason you play this game isn't its gameplay mechanics, it's the story, which is told in a way that's unlike any other Mario game you'll play. It's also very focused on being extremely funny at times, and it's probably one of the most funnest in terms of story, just going on that adventure, Mario game that I've played. And while a very large portion of it are jokes that are sort of self-deprecating one-liners from the enemies and characters you run into, there's a few standout moments that actually made me laugh out loud and even almost cry. Now in gaming, this usually points to the fact that you've kind of bonded with the characters on screen, and in Paper Mario the Origami King, you will probably do that just like I did. Now, while this is a giant game, over 30 hours, which I'll get into in a sec, this game definitely is padded out a little bit with a lot of collecting, so you will be going back and collecting things, and I mean there's combat and obviously coins that you collect which are used to buy items and even used in a way to help you during the battle system by spending it on cheering, and cheering is pretty funny. It's actually using the toads in the crowd, and during a battle, if you spend some money, it's called a cheer, and you'll get hints from the toads and healing hearts, and it's kind of cool to do if you are having a hard time with the battle. Now, I think it's important to look at this game from 2 points of view. One, as a young boy, this game would have been incredible for me to experience because it's very hard to explain this, but a lot of people like action-oriented games like the main Mario games where you're collecting things, jumping on things, and platforming. In this game, you're definitely not doing very much of that. There are some live-action battles that you will have in the game where you're using your hammer to take out enemies, but it's not a huge part of the game. And as a young kid, perhaps the only hard part of the game would be the battle system. But as an adult, the combat is my biggest issue with the game, and that's because it feels very unrewarding and repetitive at times. It isn't until you get to some of the boss battles where the combat becomes a lot more enjoyable, and that's probably about 2 to 3, 4 hours into the game. I spent over 29 hours exploring the world of Paper Mario, and in that time, I think we collected about 80% of the collectibles in the game, so there's a lot to do. If you finish the game, you can go back and collect those statues, or if you want to get more coins for items that you missed. There is also a funny museum that's set up, and it's kind of like an art gallery where you go and see things that you've experienced in the game. Now let me get into how the combat works. You'll enter into a combat with an enemy by simply walking into the enemy or hitting the enemy or getting hit by the enemy. You'll have a chance to first hit the enemy and give them damage. The game then switches into a battle mode. There's a giant circle with tiles on the ground, and you're going to have to move these tiles in sort of a mini puzzle game way to line up the enemies to get better hits on them. It's like a mini puzzle game every battle, and I think some people will find this battle system to be very unrewarding. The game doesn't give Mario any XP points. Instead, you'll win coins, which are used in many different ways in this game, but mostly to buy new gear for your adventure. The way Mario levels up is with finding giant heart pieces during the adventure itself. The important thing to say about combat is, while it's extremely repetitive during the first few hours of the game, it does switch up when you get further into the game, and how you use those tiles changes when you get into the boss battles. And I don't want to give too much away, but the amount of boss battles in this game really gets out of hand, and it's very enjoyable, with some boss battles easily lasting maybe 20 minutes. I mean, especially if you don't know what's going on or how to beat some of these bosses, you need to figure it out, and you do that by experimenting with the tiles on the wheel. Now, while a lot of people expect this to be action-packed for some odd reason, I see a lot of the user reviews saying that the combat is dull and it's unrewarding. It isn't, like I said, until further into the game where you do unlock certain items that make it more interesting, and the battle system does change up quite a bit once you get to some of the boss battles. And of course, there's tons of enemies here. I mean, I could list them all here, but it would take quite some time. I think there's over 25 different variants of the, Bowser's army that you come up against in the game. But overall, I'm going to definitely recommend this to people that are looking for a sort of chilled back game with some puzzle elements here and there, very light platforming here and there. The combat, like I said, does feel unrewarding until you get to the boss battles when it starts to really open up. So if you're looking for a very, very, very funny and emotional, surprisingly emotional Super Mario game, this definitely is going to give you your money's worth. There was moments in the game where I actually teared up, and that's surprising based on the sense of humor in here, but the way they build up these characters and the companion characters, which I haven't even mentioned because I don't really want to get into it, those characters are great in this game, and it's amazing having this companion follow you around the map and talk to you, and you get to interact with them, and it's really interesting because it's bringing a new level to the Paper Mario series that we haven't seen for quite some time, and some people out there haven't even experienced Paper Mario. So I do recommend it to most of the people out there. If you're expecting a deep dive RPG with experience points and all that sort of stuff, you're not going to get that here. You're going to get a very minimalist sort of RPG, lots of exploring, some platforming, but amazing boss battles, amazing story, very, very funny. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. I definitely recommend it to the younger crowd out there. If you have a kid that's 13, they're going to absolutely love this game, especially if you sit there with them and read the actual script in maybe voices and whatnot. It's one of those games you can play with somebody and really enjoy. That's what I did with the game. So 8 out of 10. Highly recommend for the people out there that have played the past games in the series, and I'll see you in the next episode of JKB.